In a village nestled between two rivers, there lived a hunter named Kofi. Kofi was not the tallest man in the village. He was not the richest either. But everyone agreed on one thing. No man in the land had a braver heart than Kofi. He could track a leopard through thick forest in the dead of night. He could read the wind like a letter written just for him. His arrows never missed. But bravery, as Kofi would learn, does not protect a man from cruelty. Kofi's trouble began the day the chief's brother Achiampong arrived in the village. Achiampong was a large man with loud laughter and small eyes that were always watching. He had come from the city with fine clothes and a silver chain around his neck. The chief welcomed him with a feast, and within days Achiampong had made himself comfortable, sitting in the best seat, eating the best food, and giving orders as though the village already belonged to him. He noticed Kofi quickly. "That hunter," Achiampong said to the chief one evening. "He brings in more meat than any man here. I want him to hunt for me. Only for me." The chief, who loved his brother and feared his temper, agreed. So Kofi was summoned. "From today," the chief said, not quite meeting Kofi's eyes, "you will serve my brother. Whatever he asks, you will do." Kofi stood quietly. He was a man of few words. He nodded and left. The maltreatment began slowly, the way a flood begins with just a few drops of rain. At first, Achiampong simply demanded more. More game, more trips into the forest, longer hours. Kofi obliged. Hard work did not frighten him. Then Achiampong began to take Kofi's earnings. "You hunt on my behalf," he said with a shrug. "Everything you catch belongs to me." Kofi's family, his wife Amma, and their 2 young children began to go without. Amma would cook yam porridge and pretend it was a feast so the children would not cry. Then came the humiliation. Achiampong would call Kofi to stand before guests and mock him. "This is my bush dog," he would say, laughing. "He sleeps in the forest and smells like one too." The guests would laugh. Kofi would stand still, his jaw tight, his eyes calm. But inside, the agony was real. It was not the insults alone. It was the weight of helplessness. Kofi had always been a free man, a man who answered to the forest and to his own skill. Now he was treated like something less than a man. He would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling of his small hut, and feel a deep, burning pain in his chest that had nothing to do with any wound. He thought about leaving. But where would he go? The chief had given the order. To defy it was to risk punishment, not just for himself, but for Amma and the children. So he endured. The day everything changed began like any other. Achiampong summoned Kofi before sunrise. "There is a buffalo deep in the eastern forest," he said. "Old men say it is cursed. They say it cannot be killed." He smiled. "I say that is nonsense. Go and bring it down. I want its head by sundown." The other hunters who stood nearby exchanged glances. They knew the eastern forest. It was no place for one man alone. The forest there was dense and full of ravines. A wrong step could mean death. And the buffalo, if the stories were true, had already killed 2 men who tried. "Go," said Achiampong. "Or do you want me to tell the chief you refused?" Kofi picked up his bow and his quiver of arrows. He said nothing. He walked toward the eastern forest alone. Inside the forest, the trees grew so thick, the sunlight came through only in thin, broken pieces. Kofi moved carefully. He had learned long ago that fear was not the enemy. Carelessness was. He breathed slowly. He listened. He read the ground, the broken twigs, the direction of disturbed leaves. He found the buffalo near a dry riverbed. It was enormous, bigger than any he had seen. Its eyes were dark and steady, and it stood as though it had been waiting. They watched each other. Then it charged. Kofi rolled to the side, hit the ground hard, and felt the pain shoot up his arm. He rose. The buffalo turned and charged again. This time, Kofi stood his ground. At the last moment, he loosed his arrow. It struck true, deep behind the left shoulder, where the heart lived. The buffalo ran 3 steps and fell. Kofi knelt beside it for a long moment. "Forgive me," he said quietly, as hunters do. "You were not my enemy, but I had no choice." He sat with the pain in his arm, and the heavier pain in his chest. And in the silence of that forest, something shifted in him. He thought of Amma. He thought of the way Achiampong laughed, and the way the chief had looked away when he gave the order. And he thought, enough. Kofi returned to the village as the sun began to set. He brought the buffalo's head as instructed. A crowd gathered. Even the chief came out. Achiampong looked at the buffalo head and said nothing for a moment. Then he laughed and clapped. You see, my bush dog did it after all. Kofi set the head down on the ground. Then he turned to the chief. I have done everything asked of me, Kofi said, loudly enough for the whole village to hear. I have hunted in darkness. I have gone without pay. I have been mocked and used. I did these things because I respect this village and its laws. He paused. But I am a man and I will no longer be treated as anything less. The crowd went very still. Achiampong's face darkened. You dare? I dare, said Kofi simply. He looked at the chief. Esteemed chief, you are a good man, but what has been done in your name is not good. I ask you now to see clearly. The chief was quiet for a long moment. He looked at his brother. He looked at Kofi, the man standing before him with a wounded arm, red dust on his hands, and his head held high. The chief looked down. My brother, the chief said at last, you have gone too far. Achiampong left the village before the next moon. Kofi's family was given back what had been taken from them. His name was spoken with even greater respect than before, not because he had killed a great buffalo, but because he had stood up and refused to disappear. Amma held his wounded arm that evening and said, I knew you would come back whole. I almost didn't, Kofi admitted. But you did, she said. That is what matters. And in that village between two rivers, they told Kofi's story for many years, not as a tale of hunting, but as a tale of a man who bent under great weight and did not break.